Okay, so this is going to be our first video to show how to use arrays in Java. And arrays are really great because often, to make it worth writing a computer program, we have to do it with a lot of data. I mean, if it's just going to be a simple problem, we can do that with our head, right, or on paper. But when we have a lot of data points, that's when the computer excels. Now, obviously, at this point, you know how to do this, and so it's pretty tedious if you have to create individual variable names for each element. So now we can create collections of data points where they have a single name, and we use what's called an index. We think of them as a group, and the index is a number in their order within the group. So imagine, for instance, we had 30 students in a class. Instead of referring to each student by name and then having a series of variables that were also named that way, which would be real tedious for the 30 students, we could just create an array. So this demo is just going to start by showing the basics of the arrays, and then we'll do some practical examples, and we'll go back and refactor some of our simple programs, which you should probably now realize were really should have been written with an array from the beginning. Okay, so I've set up a NetBeans project called Arrays, and I don't really have a program in mind. I'm really kind of planning to show you a variety of simple processing that we do with arrays and how the syntax works in Java. So let's start by creating an integer array. So we'll say int, and then you can specify that it's array by putting the square brackets in. So that's how I know it's an array variable rather than a scalar, a single integer variable. Now, the next thing is going to be the name of my array. And let's see, what should we use here? Let's just say int values, because I'm probably going to create an array of doubles here directly. And then we say equals new, and then we have to use the type. So new int, and then again I have the square brackets, but what I put in here is how many I'm going to have. Okay? So I don't want to make a whole bunch of numbers here, but let's go with 10, and that'll probably work for what we're going to do. Okay? So, oh, you know what? I've got a better idea. Let's go for 100, and I'll show you a way to fill the array. Okay? Okay, so let's put some comments in here. You'll be able to download the code here. So, declare an array of 100 integers. Okay, so the first thing you have to know is the first element in the array is 0, and because of that, the last one will be 99. And this is one of those places in programming, no matter what language you're using, where you get off by one errors. So the length of the array, and you'll see later, the size of the array list, which is a slightly different structure, is how many elements it holds. And so if it holds 100 elements and the first element is 0, then the last element is 99. And so basically, if the length, i.e., number of elements, is n, the index of the elements runs, oops, runs from 0 to n minus 1. Okay? All right, so you know, before there I kind of hesitated to make a large array because I thought I was going to draw all the numbers in by hand, which is kind of silly because I'm going to write a for loop to add numbers to this array. So watch how we do this. Now, a couple other things here. Let me put some more info in here. So the length of the array is a method, and so Is that a method or a attribute? Let me check that real quickly here. Let's see. It's kind of weird. I think that, oh, that's right. Yeah. So length is a attribute, a data attribute, and size is a method. So length is an attribute. So array name dot length gives us the number of elements. Okay. Now let's go ahead and initialize this array, and it's got 100 elements. So it'd be really tedious for me to go through and do assignments, and I'm going to show you how that would work, and you'll see how painful it would be, right? So basically this array is called int values. I use the square brackets, which is how I index it, and then I put 0. So int value 0 is the first element, and then I could say equals 1, okay? And then basically you could see that if I wanted to, I could do 100 statements just like this, up through the last one, which is 99. And then I could set that. Okay, that'd be tedious as hell, though. I don't want to do that, right? So instead, I'm going to write a for loop that goes through the array. So we're going to say for int, and I usually say dex, which means index. Now this is going to be a throwaway variable, so it'll only have life within the for loop. I won't use it outside. If I need to use it outside, then I need a better variable name, and I have to declare it outside of the for loop. Otherwise, it won't work correctly. Okay? So int dex, then while dex is, oops, forgot. I got to initialize dex. So int dex equals 0. Why is it 0? Because 0 is the first element of the array. Okay? And then while dex is less than, now watch this, int values dot length. There it is. Okay? And then I want to increase dex by 1 each time. Okay? All right, let me go ahead and put my body in there. Although for this one, I might only have one statement, so you don't need a body. Again, I've recommended to you that you always put a full body in. Let me tell you a gotcha. If you make a mistake and put a semicolon in here, what that does is that creates a blank statement. I think I mentioned this already. See, look at Java, the NetBeans is warning me about that. So that empty statement will run 100 times, and then my block will only run once. So don't do that, okay? All right, so here's my for loop, and so inside the for loop, I'm going to say int values, square bracket, dex, and so now notice what's happening here. Dex is the index, and it's going to change through the for loop. It'll go from 0 to 99, and that'll run through the entire array. And so now I'll just set up my code here. And why don't we go ahead and set the code to give us an array that's numbered from 1 to 100, okay? So dex, oops, sorry, dex plus 1, all right. By the way, dex plus 1 is not the same as dex plus plus. If I put dex plus plus here, that would change dex, because that's an assignment operator. See, dex plus plus is really dex equals dex plus 1. Dex plus 1 is just a value. It's not going to change dex. That's important. I only want dex to get changed here, okay? Why am I adding the 1? Because I want the range to go from 1 to 100, not 0 to 99. So basically, you can see that int value 0 is going to have the value 1, int values 99 will have the value 100. That gives me an array of 100 values from 1 to 100, which is what I wanted. Okay? All right, now where does this go here? Let's see what's going on. That's my main. That got out of place, so I'll just move that back over. And why is this out of place too? Let's move that too. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there when I copied stuff. I kind of messed it up, or maybe I just forgot to indent this. Let's do that. There we go. Okay. Oops. That's crazy. You know, I've been doing a lot of videos today, and it's kind of, I'm tired. So, whoop, son of a bitch. Alright, damn it. I'm starting to become a self-fulfilling prophecy here, aren't I? Okay, so that matches main. Let's put that back. You know what? It was alright to start with. Sometimes I get confused because the page is moved over from the edge instead of right at the left. So that's what happened. Yeah, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Okay, let's put in some empty space here. And I don't need all this empty space here between the end of the class. What the hell? There is an issue with this. All right, damn it. You guys are going to have to tell me how I did that, right? Okay. All right, sorry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and print our array values out. And so actually I want to use a for loop for that. And I can shamelessly copy myself. I could put the print loop right in the loop that does the initialization and just print each thing as I go, but I don't really want to do that. I want to print them separately after I've initialized. So really this is just display the array to confirm that our idea is correct, right? Okay. All right, and so now instead of doing this, I'm going to have a Cell tab, system out print, and I don't want to print line. I'd have 100 lines then. So I'm actually going to use the print F, and then that'll give me 100 lines across the screen, and that'll be okay. So we'll put in our percentage, and we'll put in a field width. Let's use a field width of 5. And then I have to specify the type, and that's a digit or an integer. And then I put a comma in here, and now here I'll put this same value. So I'm just going to snag it real quick. I always like to copy myself rather than type if I can. And there we go. So what this is going to do is it's going to run back through the array and print out the values. All right, let's test this baby. All right. There we go, and you can see that it's running across the screen there, and right there at the end, and we can put a new line there outside of the loop to make it a little prettier. So let's do that. Also, I think I'll change that width from 5 to let's see, let's make it 4. Because I know at the end of the value I'm going to have 100, which is a 3-digit number. And so now that's just going to print a new line essentially. So everything goes to the next line for further along. Okay, so we've figured out how to initialize an array. And I wrote a loop to do that. I showed you that I could do these assignments. And what happened here when I started to do this, the idea was I'd write all these out. Of course, nobody would do that. It's tedious. That's the whole point of having arrays, is you can work with them in this fashion. You don't have to kind of individually play with the elements. Now, there's another way of doing this too. So let me go ahead and create another array. Int, square brackets, and we'll call this Manuel. Let's see, I have no idea. There we go, Manuel, because this is going to be made manually. Little joke there. It is late in the day for Tom. And I'm just going to make this, oops, wrong character. Let's see, yeah, let's just make this 10, okay? And, oh, actually, I don't have to do that. Okay, so watch what I'm going to do now. So int Manuel equals, and so this is going to be an array literal. And so instead of declaring how many values Manuel has, I'm just going to go ahead and type in the actual values. And that can be as many as I want. So let's do a little pattern here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oops, doesn't like. Oh, okay. So I need to put a semicolon here at the end. Okay, good. And then 14, 16, 18, and 20. Obviously, I could have written a loop to do that too, right? But what I wanted to show you is that I can write these values in directly. Obviously, they don't have to be in this order. I just happen to do them that way. They could be any order whatsoever. They do have to be integers because I declared the type of the array to be integer. So all the values have to be the same type. You can't mix apples with oranges. That's what I like to say about arrays. They have to all be apples or oranges. Can't mix them together. Okay. So now, I just happen to count 3, 6, 9. I got 10 values, but I could have it just tell me how many there are, right? So let's go ahead and South tab, and then Manuel length is, drum roll please, plus Manuel dot, and then there it is, length. Okay. And let's go ahead and run our code again. Now, real quickly, I wanted to show you something I happened to notice when I was doing the IntelliSense there. I can print Manuel out without writing a for loop. So watch what happens when I do that. System.out. Oh, why the hell did I do that? Sorry. Cell tab, system out print line, and then Manuel. Okay, so that's printing the array out. So again, we'll just run the code. I'll show you what it does. Oh, so what this did is it printed Manuel's hash code. That's not what I expected it to do. And but I know that what I forgot to do was, what I want to do is I want to call the .toString method here. And I can do that in two ways. I can do it deliberately, or if I do this, Manuel's, Manuel is, that's what I want here. So this has got to be a string. So Manuel is plus. What that does is that promotes Manuel to a string, which will call that toString method, and that'll give me a list of Manuel. Whoops. Man, fuck. Maybe I'm wrong here. Damn it. All right, let's just put the toString in. That's certainly not working the way I thought it was. I thought it was going to give us a real nice display of Manuel. I guess I was wrong about that. Sort of thinking maybe I should hose the video because that's kind of a big mistake, but maybe not. Let's just not worry about that. What I thought it was going to do is I thought it would go ahead and print it out for me. Sometimes Tom has too many languages in his head, and so he's probably thinking of JavaScript where it'll print the array out and you can log it to the console. So sorry about that. Okay, so I do have it printing Manuel's length. Let's check that again. And it's 10. Okay. I wanted to mention something about that. Don't ever use a magic number. Like, even because I happen to know that there's 10 elements here, I shouldn't take advantage of that. I should always instead use the expression array name dot length. Okay? The reason for that is I might change that array later on. Okay? All right. We're pushing the time, but I wanted to show you a couple more real quickly. Let's go ahead and create a string array. Okay, so string square brackets. Let's use days of the week. So days of week, and then that's going to equal. And again, I'm going to make this a string literal array. And then I'm just going to type these in. Now, because they're strings, they have to be quoted, right? So Sunday, comma, Monday, comma, Tuesday, oops, let's get it nice, damn it, Tuesday, Wednesday, wow, I'm almost too tired to do this, so this is going to be my last video for today, right? And let's put some comments in there. All right. Yeah, there we go. Quotes around that. Friday and Saturday. I almost started to go off on a little diatribe there about where those names come from, since I'm kind of fond of the Norse deities. I guess we'll let that go here. Okay, so string days of the week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, um, and Saturday. All right, let's go ahead and add a quick line in here to loop through those. And just to save time, I'll copy one of the previous loops. Control copy, roll down here, Control V. For dex equals 0, dex is less than, not int values, but day of week. And it looks like I said days of week there. Yep, okay, dex plus plus. And then this, of course, gets changed to days of week. And now this is interesting. So I want to change this to an S because it's a string. And I think Thursday is the longest day. It's THURS, that's 5. So let's use a field width of 7. And let's see what we get. So we'll go ahead and run our program here. And come on, baby. Did I click the output? I guess I did. There it goes. Okay, so there we go. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then because I'm using the without the new line, this goes ahead and ends up here right at the end of Saturday. So usually when I use the printf or print without the print line, eventually I have to write a new line out. When I do input, I always write it as print rather than print line. So that's why I put this extra statement up here, and we'll just copy that down here. Okay. Okay, so again, I'm almost out of time, but I wanted to show you something that's really cool. So let's do that, and then we'll call it a day here. So let's go ahead and create a random object. So random RND equals new random. And of course, I have to insert the java.util random. So I have to import that. And again, the NetBeans shortcut is Control I. You have to be on the line. And why didn't it work? Bloody hell. You know why it didn't work? Because there's more than one random, I guess. So there's the one I want. All right. I might have just did it wrong too. Okay. So now let's play a little game here. Let's generate a random day of the week. And so the way we're going to do that is we'll say we need to create an integer variable. By the way, indexes on arrays are always integer. If you think about that, that's like an ordinal number. So the 0th, the 1st, the 2nd, right? So it doesn't make sense to say the 1.5 element. You either got the 1 or you got the 2. Okay, so int day equals 0. Probably don't need to initialize that, but that's fine. And then let's come up here. Day equals R&D dot next int, and then days of week. And think about how that's going to work now. So if you remember, next int gives me, what's wrong with that? Oh yeah, days of week dot length, sorry. There we go. So remember that next int gives me a number from 0 to 1 less than this, and that's exactly what the index is. So if days a week has a length of 7, that means its index runs from 0 to 6, and this is like saying random.nextInt7. That gives me the correct range, which here is 0 to 6, or more generally, 0 to n minus 1. Okay? And so then I can just print this out. And so and let's just kind of play around here. So I'm going to put this in a for loop really quick and print these 10 times. So for dex, whoops, I got to declare dex, int dex equals 0 while dex is less than 10. I'm not using dex as an index now. Actually, I should have made it counter. All right, let me do that. Because I'm going to give you the code, so it's probably better not to make it confusing. Okay, so counter equals 10. Count plus plus. Let's go ahead and put a block in here. Indent the code. Come on down. Let's see if it closed my block. No, it didn't. I'll close it myself. Go ahead and move that down, and then I want it to go ahead and print out the day. So sout tab, and then this is going to be, and since it's a string, I'm not going to bother with anything here, so I'll just print it out. So days of week, square bracket, and then day. Now day is an integer, so what that's going to do is it's going to print 10 random days, and it's going to print them one per line because I've used print line. So let's take a look at that. And there you go. You can see that here at the end. So Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Tuesday. So that's randomly. And notice it even repeats the value there. Well, what am I saying? It has to repeat the value. We only have set, and we printed 10. So like I said, I'm kind of tired here. Okay, we're approaching 30 minutes in the video. That's enough. There's more to do with this, with these arrays, but that's kind of a good start. I showed you a few things. Again, we can initialize an array by specifying the storage size, and it turns out if it's a number array, it'll be initialized to 0 if we don't otherwise do it. Or we can use a literal like this. And these numbers don't have to be in any particular order. They can be anything. They do have to be the right type. They have to be int. Similarly, this is an array literal which uses strings. And then I pretty much went through the indexing. So 0 is always the first element. The last element is the length minus 1. Okay, and I explained why that was. And then I showed you how you could easily get a random element here from an array. And so we took our days of week array and we calculated a random index using the length. So that's something that you might want to remember, because you'll do that all the time. Okay, in the next few videos I'm going to show you some common array algorithms. So we'll look at how we search for things in arrays. We'll calculate the average, which you've already done, but not with an array. And Maybe I'll dig out my stat book and we'll figure out how to do standard deviation too. It's been a while since I've looked at that. Okay, you know what I always say, code on, dude.